It is such a pleasure to be here, and it has taken a village to get to this point where the first labor mobility candidates who are refugees living in Kenya have now arrived in Canada. I'm so pleased that Micheline Muhima, one of the first two arrivals, will speak shortly. It was an extraordinary thrill to be on a Zoom call with her when she arrived in Halifax last week. We see ourselves as an innovator in the refugee space. We use private funds to create new and dynamic programs, and once we see that they work, we aim to train and support other organizations to expand these opportunities. And we also have a long-standing and very close working relationship with the Canadian government, helping refugees to resettle to Canada. And we are absolutely thrilled by this opportunity to build on and deepen that relationship with this labor mobility project. Labor mobility for us brings together the focus on self-reliance with our expertise in needs-based resettlement and protection. I'm glad to hear colleagues mention protection as such an important point in this process. And we've worked for many years to identify refugees for resettlement based on their vulnerabilities. But with this labor mobility project, we've had an important and what I've seen as an incredibly refreshing insight, which is that when we start conversations with people based on their skills and experiences and not on their trauma and vulnerabilities, we see them light up. One of the candidates whom we assessed and interviewed said after the interview that in his refugee life, this was the best day he had had because he was able to share what his strengths and skills were. These conversations are essentially rooted in dignity, in recognizing the whole person, their strengths and their experiences. And what we've seen is that it shifts the narrative from victimhood to human beings with agency and ability. And when that happens, we see this tremendous sense of hope and enthusiasm that emerges with people. RefugePoint decided to engage in labor mobility because we wanted to look at the connection between protection and durable solutions. And we do more than linking refugees with a job. We feel that it's extremely important that labor mobility is underpinned by recognizing the diverse experiences and situations of refugees. So when I talk about being refugee-centered in our approach, there are 5 points that I want to make in this regard. 5 points that I hope we will all consider strongly as we imagine and build labor mobility as a new solution. First is the importance of flexibility around requiring documentation. And I was so pleased to hear this mentioned previously. Many refugees, as you know, flee their homes and don't have time to grab a passport or a diploma or a job credentials. The second point is recognizing different family compositions. Labor mobility currently has strict criteria about family compositions, and this actually limits the applicant pool. There are many families, for example, who've taken in unaccompanied or separated children. And when RefugePoint is screening and assessing candidates, we take into account what's best for the entire family, even if there are children there that are not biological children. Resettlement has built-in accommodations to allow for different kinds of family composition. And we hope that labor mobility will start to include the same sorts of considerations, because otherwise employers are going to miss out on a pool of fine applicants. The third point is funds to support the process. As we all know here, refugees don't have funds necessarily saved up, and this is a challenge and a barrier. They need to be able to eat and pay for necessities in Canada before that first paycheck comes in. So with the help of Ed Shapiro and Barry Landry and with IRCC and UNHCR and TBB and others, we're trying to figure this one out. The fourth is support services to help with integration upon arrival. This is critical to long-term success, and it pays off. I was a job developer in Boston in the 1990s, and I saw that refugees needed extra support to integrate and to get and maintain that first job, but they stayed longer than other employers, and the companies that had them spoke in such glowing terms about them because they were so many star employees. So if we are serious about leveling the playing field to make labor mobility accessible for more refugees and about getting more good candidates in front of employers, we need to take these points into account. The Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship made an announcement saying there would be some policy changes to address these concerns. And we want to extend our great thanks to IRCC and to the Minister for considering such changes and we look forward to hearing more. The last point I'll make, and emphasize really because it was already made, is that labor mobility should be additional to resettlement. There is tremendous excitement for labor mobility, and for good reason, because we all know that it's a win-win situation. But we can't let that compromise in any way the importance of resettling people in peril. We're very pleased that EMPP in particular is clearly in addition to Canada's needs-based resettlement program, and we hope that future complementary pathways programs in Canada adhere to the same principle. So finally, as I was thinking about this day and this moment and what it means for the future, I was reminded of words that inspired me by the former Deputy High Commissioner Alex Alenikoff, who a number of years ago at a summit at Harvard that RefugePoint organized around self-reliance for refugees, dared us to imagine, saying, can we envision a world where cities compete to bring refugees in because refugees are so needed? I think labor mobility is something that can make that imagined future a reality. And we can already see this future. It's starting to happen. It's one where refugees are included, where they're needed, where their strength and skills enable them to support themselves and contribute to their communities. It is so clearly a win-win situation. But as we move forward and bring this imagination to reality, we have to do this in a refugee-centered way, with their needs and interests and diverse experiences at heart and as primary considerations. So it has taken a great deal of imagination and hard work by all of us to get here today. And RefugePoint is honored and excited to celebrate this moment with you and to collectively imagine a better future that we can make a reality. Thank you so much for inviting us here. And over to you, Ambassador.